Greetings, I'm Professor K, and in this short video presentation we're going to do a step-by-step walkthrough for the Capture the Flag exercise SickOS 1.1. The target download for this particular Capture the Flag exercise can be found up on the VolenHub site, and you can just go to the search and type in whatever CTF image that you're looking for. So in this case, if you're looking for SickOS, just type it in. It'll take you right to the download page. The download link for this particular CTF can also be found inside of the lab file. So the first thing I like to do is get the IP address of my attack machine or my Kali box. To do this, I just bring up a terminal, I type in ifconfig, I hit enter, and it comes back and it gives me the IP address assigned to my Ethernet 0. Now this is my IP address for my Kali machine. Your IP address for your Kali machine will probably differ. And we're now ready to move on with footprinting our target network. Now this is how we're going to discover the target machine. And we're going to be looking for any target, but we know that we're looking for a particular target in this case. And to do this, I'm just going to type in netdiscover space dash small letter I, the name of the interface that I want to use to scan the network, and that's going to be my Ethernet 0. Go ahead and hit enter, and in just a moment it's going to come back and it's going to give me the IP address of my target machine, and we see it right here. And we know this because this is the name that VirtualBox gives to the target machine. If this was VMware, this would say VMware. Now the next thing we're going to do is perform an active Nmap scan on our target network. Now, this is just one way that we can use Nmap. A lot of people have a different set of switches they like to use. There's no set pattern to get the same results. You can get the same results that I'm going to show you a number of different ways using a number of different switches for Nmap. So let's go ahead and use Nmap with the following switches. And I'm going to type in the IP address of my target machine that I want to scan for any vulnerable ports or services. Let's go ahead and hit enter. So now let's take a look at our Nmap results, and we find that we have SSH running on its normal port of 22, and we also have a proxy that is running on port 3128, and that port 8080 is running TCP, but that port is closed because of the proxy. We also find some information down here about our current version of Linux and what kernel it's using. So this is all good information that you can use to try to figure out what is actually vulnerable right now on our target. And to help us get along a little bit better with the information that we currently have, we're going to use a NICTO, and we're going to scan the target and see if we can get some more information about what vulnerabilities are currently present. So let's go ahead and type in clear down here. And now we're just going to type in the following. So we're going to type in NICTO space dash small letter H, and that's going to be followed up by the IP address of our target. And now we're going to give it another space, and we're going to use the use proxy switch that comes with NICTO. And we're going to follow that up with where is this proxy located and the port that it needs to use. We're going to go ahead and hit enter. NICTO's done a pretty good job, and it comes back and it tells us that this website is vulnerable to the shell shock vulnerability. And we're going to come back to that shell shock in just a moment. But right now we're going to take a look at how we go about configuring our browser so that we can go take a closer look at the website and the pages that it currently has. So let's go ahead and open up our browser. Once you have your browser up and running, just go on over to Edit. Scroll on down to Preferences. On the Preference page, you scroll all the way down to the bottom until you come to Network Proxy and click on Settings. Select the option for a manual proxy configuration. Type in the IP address of your proxy server, which is our target, and then tell it what port you want to use to filter HTTP. And that port for us is going to be 3128. Once you're all done there, just say OK. And now you're ready to start browsing the target web server. Up here in the address bar, just type in the IP address of your target machine to get access to the web server. Once you have the IP address typed into the address bar, just go ahead and access the web server's main home page. And this is what we get. Now if we right click and look at the source, we don't get very much information either. So this is a dead end. You can close out the source page. Let's go back on over here, and we know that from our Nicto scan that there was a robots.txt file, which is always good to look at. So we're going to type in that backslash, and we're going to follow that up with a robots.txt. We'll hit enter, and this is what we find. So from the results here, we see that there is a Wolf CMS application running on this web server. And the name of this page that is running the application is called Wolf CMS. Let's back off the robots.txt. Let's type in Wolf CMS. Let's hit enter, and we have the page. Upon closer examination of this home page for the Wolf CMS, we don't find much of anything that's useful. We can even take a look at the source for this page. And as we go through here, we don't find anything that's going to really help us with what we need to do, which is gain that access using a reverse shell so that we can exploit this machine. So let's talk a little bit about shell shock. So if you would like to know more information about shell shock or the bash bug, you can go out to the internet, just type in shell shock vulnerability, and you can get all the information about it you want. Shell shock or bash bug is a very well-known vulnerability present in most versions of the bash shell. The bash shell is the command interpreter that is used by both Linux operating systems and Unix to run commands on your Linux or your Unix machine. So if a machine is vulnerable to shell shock, that means that we can run commands inside of some environment variables and get access to the machine and make it do things that it's not supposed to do. In this case, we're going to use shell shock to allow us to have a reverse shell back on over to our Kali machine. Let's see how we do this. Let's go ahead and minimize our browser. Let's go ahead and open up a new terminal. And what we're going to do now is we're going to configure Netcat to listen for a connection from the target when we launch that shell shock command. So let's go ahead and configure our Kali machine to listen on port 4444. So on this open terminal, I've typed in nc netcat space dash lvnp space what port I need this Kali machine to listen on. 4444 is a very well-known Kali port. It's usually always going to be found open, and that's why I like to use it. And once you hit enter, it's going to come back and it's going to tell you that your Kali machine is currently listening on port 44 for any connection. Now let's go ahead and open up another terminal here. So I've copied and pasted this command from my lab file. I've already inserted the correct IP information for my Kali machine and my target and what port I want it to use. Go ahead and hit enter. So I've got a reverse shell established now. You can see that with my listener. Now if you have problems with this command, make sure that you only have these two terminals open. Make sure that you have the correct IP address typed inside of the command itself, that is to say the curl command, and that you have your listener configured to listen on the correct port. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and bring up my listener now, and this is the actual connection that we have. This is our reverse shell. It's right here. It's showing you that we are connected over to SickOS, and we're now attached to the following directory. So the next thing we need to do is browse on over to that Wolf CMS directory. So we're going to change directory using the cd command, and we're going to browse on over to where that CMS is located on the target. Go ahead and hit enter, and notice that my prompt changes to let me know that I'm now inside of that Wolf CMS directory. Now the next thing we need to do is list the contents of this directory. So let's go ahead, type in ls. Now the only file of interest inside of this directory is the config.php, because we know that that's going to give us some user account information, hopefully a username and possibly a password. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Now to do this, we're going to read out to the terminal what the contents are of the config.php file. To do this, we're going to use the cat command. Hit enter. Alright, so we scroll back up here to the top, and it comes across and it tells us that the database settings for the MySQL database. The database name is Wolf. It's running on port 3306. There is a user named root, and that root user has a password of John at 123. So we can attempt to log on to the server using its SQL username and password that we just located. To do this, I'm just going to open up another terminal, and I'm going to type in the following. So with the information that we found inside of that config.php file, I'm attempting to log on to the remote target using the SQL credentials. Now that's not going to work for whatever reason, because all it does is just sit there at the prompt. It doesn't give me anything. So I've typed in MySQL space dash H, stands for the host. Give it a space dash P, give it the port. Space dash small letter U, give it the name of the user. And then we have to give it the name of the database, which is Wolf. Then it's going to ask you for the password. I use the lowercase John at 123, which is the password that we found for the root user. But it's not working, so we're going to go ahead and close that out. So the next thing we want to take a look at is the contents of the password file up inside of the etc folder. So again, we're just going to print this out to the terminal using the cat command, and I'm going to type in the following: cat space /etc /password, or PASSWD, which is the name of the file. And it comes up and it gives us the contents of this file. Now the one name that catches our attention is down here, which is SickOS. So we're thinking that if we combine the name SickOS and try to use that password that we found for the root, we might just get lucky. So let's see if that's going to happen. So we couldn't get in using the SQL credentials. Let's see if we can get in using an SSH connection. So I'm going to open up another terminal. I'm going to type in the following. So I'm going to type in SSH, the name of the user that I'm trying to log on using SSH as, and the IP address of the machine that I want to try to access using SSH. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And it comes up and it's asking me, do I want to go ahead and complete the connection? I have to type in the word yes. I'll hit enter. Now it wants the password. So we're going to try that password, John at 123. So I'm going to type in John at 123. Hit enter. And it lets me know that that completed successfully. So now we're up and we have a prompt that lets us know that we're logged on as SickOS over on the SickOS server. Okay, so let's take a look at how we're going to proceed with this. So the next thing we need to do is check the permissions of this user called SickOS, or SickOS, however you want to say it. So I'm going to type in sudo space dash small letter L, and let's see what permissions he has. Now it's going to ask me the password again for SickOS, so I'm going to go ahead and type in John at 123. And it says that he has root permissions. We see that down here. He has all the permissions, so that's good. So let's see what else we can get this user to do for us. Now the first thing that SickOS can do for us is log on as a root user. So let's change him over to a root user by doing a sudo space su. And now he's logged on as a super user, or in this case root. So we should be able to check the directory for the root user, the home directory, and see what's available inside of that. So let's change location on over to the root directory. Hit enter, and that's where we're at. Let's go ahead and do an ls followed by an LA to check what permissions the files inside of this directory currently have. Hit enter, and we see that there's a very interesting file in here with a very long name, and it is a text file, and that's going to be our target. So let's go ahead and cat that out. So I've already had and highlighted that long text name, and I've copied it. Now I'm going to type in cat, and I'm going to just paste the contents in front of that. And let's go ahead and see what we get. And it comes up and it says you have successfully completed the SickOS 1.1. It says thanks for trying. So we have gained access to the root, and we did it primarily using nothing but manual hacks. Now we know why this is important, because if you're getting ready or you're thinking about attempting the OSCP exam, then you won't be able to use Metasploit or some of these other well-known automated tools. You're going to have to go at it manually, so that's why we're doing this. And so that's going to conclude this short video presentation on how we go about completing the walkthrough for the Capture the Flag exercise SickOS. So if you have any questions or you have any concerns about any of the steps that I performed in this short video presentation, please do not hesitate to reach out, contact your instructor, and I'll see you in my next video.